All right, thank you, Josh. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We are happy to be here to answer your questions. So we passed out some cards, so we'd love for you to ask your questions on the cards. And then Emily is an intern working with Wellcats right now. She's a dietetic intern at Texas State. Wave Emily. And she's going to pick up the cards, so you can just get them to Emily. So I want the panel to introduce themselves. Lindsay, would you start?
Yeah. My name is Lindsay Mingy, and I am a nutrition faculty member here at Texas State and also part of the Wellcats leadership team. I am also a registered and licensed dietitian, so I'm happy to answer any of your nutrition questions.
Awesome. I'm Janet Besner. I'm one of the team leads in Wellcats. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Physical Therapy, so I can answer all those kind of questions.
I'm Carolyn Swearingen, and I also am part of the Wellcats leadership team, and I'm a faculty member in exercise science division. So any questions related to exercise and physical activity, I'd be happy to answer for you.
I'm Heather Idella. I'm a psychologist in our counseling center, so I primarily work with our students, but I'm kind of balancing this out with a little bit of a mental health and emotional wellness perspective.
Yeah, thanks for being with us, Heather. Appreciate it. So we have a couple questions. Do you know who those are for?
Let's see. Strategies for keeping motivated.
Okay, so that's a good question. So the literature supports that the best kind of motivation for these kinds of health habits is what we call intrinsic motivation, as opposed to extrinsic motivation, or internal motivation as opposed to external motivation. So intrinsic motivation being something that's important to you and is consistent with your highest values, as opposed to external would be because your physician recommended it, or because your spouse is nagging you, or because you want to look really good for your 25-year high school reunion. Those are all extrinsic reasons. So intrinsic reasons are things like you want to have children and you want your body to be in the best possible shape it can be, or you're about to retire and you want to stay active. You know, there's something really important in your life that you want to be able to do and you can't do it now, or you want to make sure you maintain the ability to do it. So some kind of vision. So I admit, even though I'm an expert on behavior change, that I forget sometimes what my motivators are. So I'll tell you a few tips. It's helped me to write them down. You can do that in the form of like a vision statement, like what's your vision for your health and well-being in 5 years, let's say, you know, and keep that somewhere where you can remember it. I like my family and friends to support me, so I tell them what my vision is and have them gently, not naggingly, gently just remind me every once in a while if they see me sort of falling off the wagon. That's a touchy one. You really have to select correctly the people that you give permission to do that with. You know, putting some kind of memory jogger, like a picture of something that is important to you somewhere that you can see. Those are all the things. And I think, and I know Heather would probably agree with this. I'm going to ask her to respond in a minute, but, you know, being intentional about these things, super intentional. So before you make any decision, whether it's what to eat for lunch or what kind of exercise should I do or anything, just to stop for a second, which is good for you anyway, and just to ask yourself, why am I doing this? You know, why is it important to me? And to really make a decision in the moment. Sometimes you might say, you know what, I'm really tired right now, or I've got something else going on, and I'm not going to do that today. That's okay. But tomorrow, if I stop and really think about it, I am going to do it because I remind myself that it's really important. So in every decision and constantly in our lives, just to not go on autopilot, just to be really intentional and to own your decisions, right? I kid the dietitians all the time. If there's a salad and a piece of chocolate cake and I stop and I say to myself, what's best for me right now? Well, the salad's probably best for me in terms of giving me the ability to do something, but I really want the cake. So today I'm going to take the cake and I'm not going to make myself feel bad about it, because that shame and guilt is worse for me than the chocolate cake. Does that make sense? So if you make a decision that's not the best for you on that day in terms of your health, just own it and be okay with it and go on. So
I would agree with all of that.
Yeah, good.
I think we've known since childhood development, positive reinforcement helps to perpetuate behaviors that are desirable versus negative reinforcement. And so I talk to our students all the time about now you're at a place where you have to adult yourself, right? You're not looking at other people to give you positive reinforcement to help you do behaviors that are going to help you be successful. But that is way more successful than berating ourselves for making the decision to have the chocolate cake. We also know you need to give yourself those small rewards as a way to continue to perpetuate that motivation. So if we're just depriving ourselves of everything that a reward center says that's enjoyable, we're going to get to a point we don't want to do the healthy behaviors. And so I think it's finding that balance. So having that intrinsic goal for yourself, having things that remind you of that, but then also do something that is enjoyable and pleasurable and fun as a reward for meeting those milestones, because that's going to reinforce continuing those behaviors. And I think the other thing is to set like reasonable goals, like to say I'm only going to eat salads for a month. Ugh, you know, I mean, even if you like salads, you get to a point. So you need to kind of be able to say, I'm going to start with a small obtainable goal. And so maybe it's a healthier behavior 3 times a week. And you're going to reinforce that. And then maybe you get to a place where you kind of get to your decision path and you say, okay, is 3 where I want to be? Can I move it up to 4? What would that look like? How am I going to reinforce that as well? And then being gentle with yourself, especially if you, I think, get into periods of like stressful times. Sometimes that's when our healthier coping strategies kind of go in the back burner, but also being able to say, once I recognize that's kind of the position I'm in, I can start putting those healthier behaviors on the front burner again.
Well, I will say, I've learned this the hard way. If you can keep those healthy behaviors during stressful times, you're going to get through those times so much better. That's really a lesson that I've learned and relearned many times in my life. And so I've gotten to the point in my life where I really buckle down on those healthy behaviors when I know stress is happening, and it pays off in droves. Just pays off in droves. Takes a little more discipline maybe, I guess, and willpower, but it's worth it. Any follow-ups on that? Yeah.
Well, I had to have my blood work done on a Monday,
You had
and
to.
on a Thursday the week before, the girl in the office next door to us made these brownies with caramel drizzled over the top of them. I mean, just looking at them made your mouth water. And I was like, I just can't do that. I just can't do that. And someone said, oh, you're a few days out from your blood test. Go ahead, you can do it. And I did. And then I counted everything, looked at every label the rest of the weekend to make sure I didn't eat any more sugar. And it was down when I went and got my blood work done. So yay!
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. Yeah, so being thoughtful about that, I think that's a great example of really thinking about, okay, this is happening. Can I enjoy this now? I mean, if we turn that story around a little bit and said, okay, I'm going to have a difficult conversation with an employee today. Should I eat that brownie? Probably not. If you want to be your best and you're worried or concerned about having that conversation, because sugar does weird things to your brain, and it makes it difficult for you to stay in that executive part of your brain up here, which is what you need in those difficult conversation examples. So even thinking about like, what do I have to do today, and how important is food to my ability to do that? You probably all underappreciate how important what you're putting in your mouth is to your ability to be your best self in your work or any situation, even a difficult situation with a loved one. I think food is probably the most important of many of these behaviors that we are talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I also feel like, just to kind of tag off of everything everyone is saying, is there's room for everything in moderation. And, you know, I say that all the time because I feel like people have a lot of stress when it comes around to food, or they build a lot of rules around food, and that can lead to sometimes, you know, disordered eating patterns, or for individuals, just that constant kind of yo-yoing of I'm really strict today, and then I can't be strict anymore. I've got to have the brownie, right? And then that brownie sort of spirals for that person because they've been so strict all throughout. So keeping for yourself that idea that I can relax a little bit about what I'm doing. It's good to have an understanding of, as you mentioned, you are what you eat. You know, we absolutely, our health is directly tied to the things that we put in our mouth. But at the same time, there's also room for us to be able to have some flexibility in the things that we do and still be able to achieve our goals. And kind of as you were mentioning too, about when we're setting goals or thinking about motivation, having them be realistic or be attainable for us. If we put too much pressure on ourselves around those goals, or we make them too broad or big, then it feels like we're always chasing them. So if we can start with small goals, celebrate those milestones, those little changes add up so quickly. I mean, I say this all the time, but like, you know, if we could even do something like have someone have one less soda a day, and we spread that out over the course of the year, what a difference that one change makes in that person's health. So it doesn't have to be a complete overhaul all at once. These small, attainable goals will eventually add up to an entire lifestyle change. And that's really the key long term.
I'd like to add to what the other ladies have shared. You know, everything in moderation, you know, kind of repeating that, and don't get stuck. So if you make a choice that maybe doesn't align with what your goal or your value is, and you feel like you might have fallen off the wagon, just know you haven't. You can make that next decision. You are in charge of those decisions, so you can make that change the very next step. So don't get in the mindset of an all or nothing, because we can get stuck in that. So it could become easy to get stuck in that. So don't get there. And then I kind of use the 80-20 rule. You know, if I can do stuff healthfully 80% of the time, then I give myself a little leniency on the other 20% of my time. And that could be any type of choice that I might make. So I don't know if that aligns with you.
Yeah, the research really is strong in that if you are the most unhealthy, like, I don't want to really describe that more. If you're just really at the bottom of unhealth, if you can get yourself up one level, if there's 5 levels of health, you can get yourself out of that worst health, you are adding years to your life. Yeah. The research is very clear about that. So you can do that easily with 80-20 rule. 80-20 rule will get you up to level 4. And that's going to protect you from diseases. It's going to lengthen the years you can live, increase the quality of your life. And so this is not about perfection. I'm glad you said that. I mean, everyone always approaches health habits with the perfection mindset. Yes. If I can't do it 100%, I'm not going to do it at all. That's crap. Throw that out of your mind. It's not that at all. It's making the best choice for you the most you can. And every day is a new day. That's what's so cool about this. Every single day is a new day to make a positive choice for yourself, and to not beat yourself up about the bad choices is so critical. I also have learned that lesson the hard way. I've always been a person who's driven and very hard on myself, and when I was in graduate school, I realized how negative that was impacting me. I started having heart palpitations, blah, blah, blah. So figured that out. Don't do that anymore. So, you know, treating yourself with love and saying, I'm just a human. I'm not going to be perfect. I don't need to be perfect. This is not, if it were easy, every one of us would be doing it.
Yes.
Right? It's not easy. That's just the facts. And so that's why we have this program, and that's why we try to make Texas State a healthy environment where people are all trying to engage in healthy behaviors. It's hard.
I have an example, if y'all are okay with this, of a client that I worked with for a while. And this particular person did eat all of the meals of the day through a drive-through and was not physically active. So what we started with is I wasn't going to touch the convenience of the meals because we weren't there yet. But my first thing to start with was when you order your drink, because it was all super, upgrade, whatever. Okay, let's take that soda and let's bring it a notch down. So instead of getting the super, let's get the large or the medium, whatever it was. And also ask for a water. And every time you take a sip of your soda, you follow that with a sip of water. And that's where we began. So, but the impact was huge and made amazing changes over the course of time. But you see how small, and it was just downsizing one and then adding the water. Every time you do this, you do this. And that's where we started. So everybody starts at a different place. And I think that's such a great story because this person needs some huge changes, and but that's where we started. So just as simple. All right. Next, we got thoughts on exercise or nutrition tracking apps. So technology. What type of technology and apps out there at the fingertips? So, anybody want to start with this one?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think it's a great thing to do to track the foods that you're eating or the exercise that you're doing. For some people that can feel stressful tracking everything, but I find if that's something that's a helpful motivational tool for you, for a lot of people, it can bring awareness to what's in your foods. It can bring awareness to, hey, when I do these activities, how many calories am I burning when I do that? And a lot of people just don't know. And certainly for many Americans, looking at a food label and trying to understand what's on that food label feels overwhelming. So to have an app that just tells you, hey, this is how many calories were in this food, or these were my macronutrients that were in this food, can be a really convenient way to get that snapshot education and knowledge that is really important. For so many people, they don't understand or know how many calories are in that chopped salad might be the same amount of calories that's in that slice of pizza. And so the foods that we can oftentimes think, oh, I'm really making a difference in my calories, I still would want you to have that chopped salad in terms of the nutrients that are in that food, but to also be aware of how many calories am I consuming in the day. Those type of apps can be really, really helpful. A lot of people that I interact with and work with use MyFitnessPal. They find that to be a really easy to use tracking app. The nice part about MyFitnessPal too is that it has a, what is that called? The UPC reader.
Yeah.
Says scan.
The barcode.
Barcode scan,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. So if you are consuming something at home that is packaged, you can scan the back barcode of anything that you have, and it will automatically upload the calorie and macronutrient content of that food into the app. And you could do this at the grocery store if you wanted to. I mean, with anything that you're consuming that has that barcode. And so it makes it really easy to be able to track things without having to manually enter anything. And I know for so many of us, our time is limited. So having those little things that make it just faster to do can be really helpful. I also have quite a few individuals I've interacted with that use the Noom app. So if you're someone who is working at trying to either lose a little bit of weight, or you're focused on weight maintenance, it's a tracking app that also utilizes evidence-based literature around the psychology of changing your behaviors. And so they give you motivations in the morning of just like, hey, this is what to think about today. So if you're someone that's like, I don't even know what my goals are, I'm not really sure how to get motivated, it kind of helps give you that initial starting point. And then throughout the day has like little tricks or tips or tools for you to do that it just reminds you all day long. So that's a really nice app as well if you want a little bit more of assistance as you're going along versus being more on your own with something like MyFitnessPal.
Yeah, one of my physical therapist colleagues who lives in Philadelphia, she's one of our most brilliant researchers in our profession, and she's a good friend of mine. I just saw her about, I don't know, last couple weeks ago when I was at a conference, and she's lost like 50 pounds. And so I got up the nerve to ask her, you know, what are you doing for your health? She's probably in her late 60s. She said, I joined Noom. And I'm like, oh, tell me. And I said, she's so critical of all the research, you know, right?
Yes.
And so I said, tell me about it. And she goes, I cannot think of one thing I would change with this program.
Yeah.
I've looked up all the research. I mean, she's like all about it. And so I was delighted to hear that because I've heard other people really talk about it. So can you use the app if you don't join their program? Do you have to pay for it?
I think you do have to,
You have to
If you have
join.
free trials,
Oh, that's right, that's right.
But
Okay.
If you have,
eventually, yeah.
Noom, N-O-O-M.
Yes.
N-U,
N-O-O-M.
N-O.
Yeah.
Another thing, and this actually, if you're a benefits eligible employee through, what do we have at this point? United Health.
Yeah,
Care?
yeah.
Yes.
There's two
No,
different.
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Blue Cross Blue
Yeah.
Shield, I can never remember what we're. There's two different programs, and I personally used one for 2 years ago and found it super helpful and just kind of ingrained habits. And it's Real Appeal through the Rally company. It has a lot of the similar functions in their app. They also have some online streaming exercise videos, which I find helpful because I cannot memorize an exercise routine to save my life. And this way, at least when I'm traveling, I can also get that online. They started off with DVDs, and then you go places, nobody has a DVD player anymore. So, and that's something that's actually free to us through our insurance. There is an alternative program. I haven't used it, so I couldn't speak to that. And it also, if you have an iPhone or Apple Watch, which I think a lot of people are starting to use, not only for the exercise tracking, but it'll tell you like when you should just stand up, when you should take some deep breaths because your heart is telling you you're stressed and you need to just slow your nervous system down. And I know the Real Appeal app is compatible with that, so it'll just move all of that information right into the app as well. So but I do think those things can be helpful in creating some structure, setting some goals. The other thing with Real Appeal was there were group sessions that were you just called in for them. And I really found that super helpful in the beginning. I think I'm much more of a collectivistic person. And so when I'm kind of doing it on my own, I kind of feel like, oh, I'm free floating. And maybe I've told some people that are good accountability partners. But it was kind of nice to have a group of people where you were calling in once a week and you had a sense of kind of where people are at. And they're talking about from a very holistic, like what's sleep like, what's stress management like, what are you doing for movement? I think we think of exercise as you have to be like going to the gym and they were just talking about creating more movement in your life, which I think is relatively simple to do. And something that's really benefited me, the stress level of my job of, I'm just gonna go walk the hall for 5 minutes and take some deep breaths and just try to center myself so I can go back into the office to manage whatever is going on. So I found that one helpful.
Yeah. There's a ton of different exercise ones, and I think they're all good. So you should try ones. I find it useful to track exercise in two specific situations. One is when you aren't sure if you're meeting the national guidelines, the federal guidelines. So all adults age 18 to death should get 150 minutes a week of moderate physical activity. 150 minutes a week. That's 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And so you can get that just walking around doing your job. It doesn't have to be all at one time. It doesn't have to be wearing tennis shoes. It doesn't have to be sweating. It doesn't have to be anything. Everything you do counts. But if you don't know if you're getting it, then a tracker will help you know. And so that's really helpful, number one. And number two, like I've had clients who've said, oh, I'm so active in my work. I come home from work every day. I'm exhausted. So I have them wear a tracker and we find out they're not. doing what they're supposed to be doing in terms of protecting themselves. And so that's a real eye opener to realize that. And then they're tired because they're physically unfit, not because they're doing too much. So that's one thing. And then the other situation is, like Lindsay said, if you're the kind of person where that's motivating to you, then definitely use it. If you're the kind of person where that causes you more stress, then don't use it. We do know from research that even if you are obese, morbidly obese, and have diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, whatever you might have, MS, if you can meet the guidelines, even though you are those things, you are protecting yourself. So it's not really your weight that's most important. It's not your disease status. It's your behaviors that are really the most important. People who can eat healthy and be physically active, consistent with the guidelines, and get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, very important. If you can do those 3 things, you're protecting yourself from disease, death, disability, because really our bodies are mostly genetics, whether we like it or not. If you look at your parents, that's what you're gonna look like, unless your lifestyle is drastically different. And so some of us can't change that, no matter how hard we try. I've put 2 people that look exactly the same on the same program, and one will lose weight and one will not. That's genetics. So it's the fact that you're doing it that's most important. So don't get discouraged if the numbers don't change. You're gonna feel better and you're gonna protect yourself.
Yeah, and a little off of that too, to find things besides the number on the scale to be that marker of success for you. I find that sort of spiral, or for so many people, self-esteem or motivation around what they're doing is tied to that number on the scale.
Yep.
And there are so many other things that are more important than just that number in terms of markers of your success. So it's, what is your energy like? Did you feel like you were able to have more strength in the things that you were doing? Did you hit a milestone in terms of feeling like you're managing your stress better? Those types of things have such greater overarching effects on your quality of life and overall what you feel like your life energy is like too. And to me, and I know the literature speaks to this too, in terms of just your health, those are much bigger markers to your overall health than just that one number on the scale. So don't let that be what's making you feel like you're failing or you're not having the success that you think you should be having, because the changes that you make are making so many physiological alterations for the better for you, and that may be the last thing that shows up, but you've seen everything else in your life change. So I would just say that about the scale.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Throw out the scale.
Yes.
The watch is so handy if you have the ability to if you have one of these units or something close by that you can use or ask for your birthday or your next holiday. It's super helpful on just raising your level of awareness, like others spoke about, when to breathe, to stand up, and just, are you hitting those movement marks throughout the day? Being more active throughout our day and not scheduled exercise like going to the gym and I'm going to pound out the weights. We're not talking about that. Just moving more every day is just going to make such a huge impact. And kind of talking more about what Lindsay said, and Janet, staying away from those numbers on the scale, because those physiological adaptations are taking place and you might not see those effects right away. So let's say that if you were tracking your body weight and you didn't see a change on the scale, you may lose motivation. You may decide, well, this didn't work anyway, so I'm just going to quit, but don't do that, because you may be making body composition changes. You're increasing your lean tissue within your body and decreasing your adipose tissue, your fatty tissue, but the scale stays the same. So that happens. We have the ability to measure those numbers, or in health and percent body fat and blood pressure and things like that. If you're interested in it, please let me know. We can certainly do that for you. The other thing is going off of, did you sleep better? Or maybe somebody else notices something about you, like, oh, you look like you have more pep in your step, or you're more happy, you're happier these days. That's really good. So listening for those things and making, thinking about what have you noticed in your own changes that aren't reflective of numbers. Keep that in mind, okay?
Yeah, is there another one? Yeah.
Okay, the next question is, does Wellcats offer physical therapy treatments?
Yeah, does Wellcats offer physical therapy? So Wellcats does not, but we have a physical therapy clinic associated with the university. It's in Round Rock. So physical therapy moved to Round Rock almost 2 years ago. So our clinic's in Round Rock. We'd love to see you. We're awesome. We have the best faculty, the best clinicians. Our students help run our clinic, but you have to go to Round Rock. Sorry. It's good for Round Rock, but nobody's in that room right now. Unless I'll be getting physical therapy. Yeah, we can also recommend really good physical therapists here in San Marcos, in the San Marcos area. Our graduates are perpetuated around this area, and they're fantastic. So there are, I think, 13 PT schools in Texas, and word on the street is that our school here is the best of all 13. We just have really good faculty, and our students are amazing. So I can recommend that. So my net ID is JB25. If you want to send me an email, I'm happy to help you find the right PT for you. I was going to say something about sedentarianism, being sedentary. Do you guys know what I mean by that? Yeah. So there's 3 different terms that are used. So physically active means that you're meeting the 150 minutes a week. And you can do that with walking 150 minutes a week and more. So running, bicycling, lifting weights, exercise class, whatever. But walking is sort of the minimum stimulus that you need to get that 150 minutes of moderate. Then physically inactive people are defined as people who aren't meeting that 150 minutes a week. So even if you're meeting 100 minutes a week, you would be classified as physically inactive. Sedentary means you're literally doing nothing but sitting and getting to your office. And so I want to talk about some research that's come out not too long ago. Even if you go to the gym 45 minutes a day and work out fairly hard, so you're meeting that 150 minutes a week and then some, and you sit all day long, that sitting is negating that working out. And so you are at really high risk if you're being sedentary. So that's the importance of getting physical activity or movement during your day. So like Heather said, just get up and walk down the hall. We have this gorgeous campus here. Mostly the weather's pretty good. If you don't mind sweating, you can just get out and walk if you're able to. But standing is better than sitting. Moving is always preferred, taking the stairs. So sedentarism is a really big concern for the medical community right now because it's having a negative effect on our metabolism. So that's putting us at greater risk for diabetes, greater risk for different vascular diseases like blood clots and strokes and things like that. So I really want to caution people, even if you can't get to the gym, if you can get those 150 minutes a week, again, you're protecting yourself. I don't really think we know all of the negative effects yet of being sedentary because it's really a newer phenomenon in our culture. Everything is so convenient. We can literally sit on our butts all day and do our jobs and get to places. So really think about that. I have a standing desk. I make myself stand. I have a nice fluffy mat I can stand on when my knees get cranky. But standing, doing walking meetings, walking upstairs. I walk up the 8 flights to the 8th floor on the days I have the Senate meeting. And when I get to the top, I'm completely out of breath. So I recover in like 2 minutes and I get the steps. So things like that.
Start low and go slow.
Yeah.
So if you are kind of new to this and it's something that you're going to make that change for, just baby steps and just do a little bit more every day. So maybe instead of sending that email, you're going to walk down to your colleague's office and talk to them in person, or instead of making that call, do that. So just thinking about little bits of time, little snips of time that you can increase, you can change that sedentary time to an active time, how you can do it. going to the bathroom at the furthest location, right? Parking away from your entry point, saving those parking spots for others. You know, the ones that really want to fight you for it anyway. You don't want to you don't need that stress in your life. So just park away.
I've even like go to the HEB and I park on the way back. It's easier to get in and out, and it gives me that extra movement.
Don't
Like,
have to
it's
worry
those
about
little
dinging on the
steps.
cars.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
And we have a great wellness policy, you know,
Yeah.
so I mean, I think that's something in the counseling center as we talk about taking care of other people. It's like, but how do you take care of yourself and how do you find that work-life balance? And so we've worked like with our director, even when I was interim, to make sure that we're trying to carve that time out. And there are certain days where literally we give that up, but we're also really trying to promote a culture where like that should be our last resort to give that up. And they've made some nice changes to that policy recently as well.
How serious is the 10,000 steps a day thing that the watches and the apps?
Evidence isn't so strong about it. Most people, to get your 150 minutes a week, most people need around 8,000 steps a day. And so remember, the greatest benefit occurs from getting like 2,000 to 5,000. So that low jump is giving you the most benefit. So 10,000 is kind of a gimmick. But it has been effective in getting people to move. So I'm not going to criticize it, but it's not research-based.
Because yesterday, I did like 50 minutes of working out after I got off work, and I was only at like 4,500 steps, and I'm like, I felt so defeated, but then I was like, I don't know. I got up, I did something today.
Yeah, good for
But
you.
it was really defeating to look at my phone and be like, I don't know.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Do you have a sedentary job, you said?
Yeah, I work in the dean of students.
Okay.
So I try to get them off, but
Yeah. So even standing, definitely walking on your breaks, taking a nice walk at lunch or whatever you can do will help that. But yeah, don't worry about that. If you're getting the time in, and you're breathing to do it, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
The LBJ interior stairs has been my thing, because I can't go straight up the emergency stairs. I'll take more than 2 minutes to catch my breath. So I do all of the interior, because our building is so zigzagged.
Yeah.
I'll do that. And then I just also, if I have time, I make the trip down to the 4th floor restroom versus just, and it's like, for me, I'm like, okay, but I'm at least doing these little things, even if my number doesn't look where I want it to be.
I
So.
always take the emergency stairs, one, because I'm new and I don't know where the elevators are, which is good. But when I walk in with people, especially if I know them, they feel awkward, so they have to take the stairs with me instead of taking them.
That's good.
Awesome.
Good job.
Social
Peer
pressure is
pressure.
good. Social pressure is great. Yeah.
I have a meeting here on the second Friday of every month. And there was a man that I would see when I would come out the back door of the LBJ Student Center, and he was going somewhere on campus. And I would go over to the Matthew Street garage, get in my car, because I thought, well, this is faster, and drive over here and find a place to park and get up there. And he'd be sitting in that room where I was going. And I was like, after about 3 months, I said, how do you get over here so fast? And he says, I walked the Bobcat Trail. And I went, forget the car. I thought I was saving time by driving over here.
That's a great story.
So I walked today and it was really nice out there.
Yeah, it's a great campus to walk. So yeah, just little things like that. My family and I, we moved to downtown Austin 4 years ago now. So I live right off Cesar Chavez. And we have a rule that we don't use our car on the weekend. And it's awesome. So we ride our bikes, we walk. I can walk to the grocery store. I can ride my bike to the grocery store. I can get to anything I need to get around there. And it's really transformed our lives. We park our cars on the weekend. So we feel like we're contributing positively to the environment, and we're getting more physical activity. And so even when it rains, we put on our little galoshes, get our umbrella. So just things like that. I mean, that was a lifestyle decision that we made, because I have to sit in the car a lot. I drive to Round Rock, I drive to San Marcos. I-35 and I are best friends, sort of. So, those kinds of decisions. So, if you can walk safely somewhere, that's another opportunity, if you have the time and that ability.
Well, I know we've said this a little bit already, but the power of the buddy system, you know, if you can engage your coworkers to, you know, be in on this with you, you not only help to change the culture of your department where you work, but you also, you know, help to have those connections that keep you accountable. I'm also a big one for, you know, enlisting support from your spouse too. So like one of the things that my husband and I started doing a couple years ago is that every day when we are both home together, we go for a walk around our neighborhood, and it's like a half-hour walk. We're not trying to like break a sweat or do anything crazy, but it's also like really good bonding time for us to get to talk about our day or not have all the distractions of your phone and all that, you know, it's a mental break as well. And we need that in our work day too. I mean, we have so much going on, all these deadlines, you know, all the pressure, whatever is going on in your department, and to do like that walking meeting. Oh my gosh, we've been doing those in our department. And I feel like we're so much more productive in what we actually accomplish because we're outside and we're like having a moment in nature. And I feel like I think better when I'm not under the fluorescent lights and, you know, the environment of the office setting. So if you can prioritize some of those things, or even with like the watch, to not have it be that just like the scale, right? Don't worry about the numbers, just let it be that reminder to you. I was thinking about this when we were talking about it earlier. My in-laws got the Apple Watches a couple of years ago, and they're very into tech. And we went to visit them over Christmas. And, you know, we're hanging out, having a conversation, and both of them at the same time get the buzz on their watch, and they're just up and walking around while we're having this conversation. They're just walking in the room. And I just thought, this is so awesome. It was fantastic. And like that little bit of movement makes all the difference in the world. And they literally were just circling the kitchen or circling the living room, carrying on their conversation with us. And then by the end of the time that we were there, we would just get up too and walk around with them. So we're like carrying a conversation, doing this little like, you know, train around the living room. But those little things add up, and we discount them so much, the small changes, but the small changes are what really lead to, then all of a sudden you're in a different lifestyle and you're biking to go eat, you know, or get your groceries. And but those little steps go a long way. Plus, from the mobility standpoint too, if you have an injury, or if you're, you know, working through getting to that place where you feel like you could bike to your grocery store, that little bit of movement builds and builds your strength cumulatively. So then all of a sudden you feel like you have that, the strength to be able to do something bigger like that.
Yep.
So.
Have a couple more
Yeah,
questions here. Okay. Are we able to extend some of the benefits to our spouses or dependents? And I'm thinking, is this related to the wellness benefits or just HR benefits in general? So I'm not sure.
That was my question. I was actually
Oh,
asking
okay.
about like, so like using the rec or using like counseling or using just any like the WellCats benefits.
Okay. So WellCats benefits are going to be related to just full-time employees. However, we do have some community-based programs that are offered at a discount. That could be an option. So then you could go and be active together for physical activity.
Like a discount to San Marcos Activity Center.
We do have a discount to the San Marcos Activity Center. We have a group exercise program there. And so that could be a benefit that could be extended. And then there wouldn't be a discount, a subsidy for campus recreation.
Right.
But your spouse, dependent, could join there.
We've had spouses come to the cooking classes at
We have a lot, open that up.
and once a month there we do cooking classes on a variety of different topics at Family and Consumer Sciences building, which is just across the street from the rec center. And we have a cooking lab there, so we can have, you know, I think we've had 25, 30 people in those cooking classes. at once, and they're all different types of, like maybe we do a Mediterranean diet, Mediterranean lifestyle.
That's this Friday, right?
Cooking class, yes. I
Yeah,
believe
so
it
this
is
Friday, it's Mediterranean,
Mhm.
Mediterranean food.
And we've done things like Super Bowl, plan for the Super Bowl recipes, and all different types of styles. And we've had spouses come to those classes as well. And then you can learn together as a couple, which
And
I think can be
that's
really
free.
powerful.
Yeah,
Yes, and
that's
that's free. Yes.
When it comes to counseling, mental health resources, we put some information in there. Therapy Assistance Online is an online program, but you would have to have a Texas State email to set up a free account. And it has kind of a couple of different target areas, but helping out with mood management, depression symptoms, as well as anxiety management. And it teaches tools that are all evidence-based practices, either coming from cognitive behavioral therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy. It's also a piece on interpersonal communication and anger management and a way to assess your substance uses. So, I mean, I guess you could share an account if you wanted to. The counseling center only serves enrolled students. And so for us as employees to utilize counseling services, it's actually through Bobcat Balance, which is managed through Human Resources. And so as long as you are a benefits eligible employee, or if your partner is on the insurance plan, you would have access to that. They provide up to 5 free counseling sessions with a licensed mental health practitioner in the community. You can use that for kind of each issue that you're looking for support with per year. So you can use that multiple times or for different issues during the same year period. And then often those EAP providers can also be providers under insurance. So if you have something that is a diagnosable kind of treatment concern for mental health care, you can continue with that same provider once your EAP benefits are used up. It's really a simple process. It is, you're talking to somebody who's not a Texas State employee to initiate all of that. They identify the providers, send you a list, and then you make some phone calls to see who you would like to work with in the community. So that would just be dependent on insurance.
And then we had, how far in advance do we need to schedule a time to meet with a nutritionist?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a Colton question. So Colton is our nutrition graduate assistant, and he conducts our one-on-one nutrition consultations. And generally, I would say he probably needs a week in advance to be able to get something scheduled for you, but he might be able to see you sooner, just depending on what his schedule is like. But he is fantastic, and I would highly encourage you to do that. It can really give you some just good, practical, individualized tips for what to do based on your specific needs.
And to get that process started, if anybody's interested, we first contacted Josh, back here in the back, and he would just verify your WellCats membership and connect you with Colton to get the ball rolling.
Colton usually asks you to do a 3-day food recall.
Yes.
So he wants you to track what you're eating and then send that to him in advance so he can get an idea of what's going on. It's a great service. If you did that in the community, it would probably be $250.
Yeah,
$200?
probably at least 150.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's a good
Yeah.
free benefit. So. Do y'all have other questions? We did give you a lot of information in the slides, just general information, good for everybody. So those are for you, for a resource. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I would just say use therapy. We've talked a lot about kind of physical things. If you've never tried therapy, I think it can feel intimidating. So I think if everybody actually had access to therapy and we all utilized it, I think we'd all be better off individually and culturally. And I think I put in the slides kind of a continuum. I think we think about our physical health on a continuum. Mental health is absolutely similar, and they're so interconnected. Like there's that holistic way of, you know, I know my physical health is absolutely impacted by my stress level, and I'm still in a position where, although I'm not an enrolled student, like academic stress and the artificial stress of the academic semester absolutely throws me off my game, and I'm constantly trying to work on that. But having somebody to talk to can just really be a good place to kind of work through life transitions, just our own growth and experience, or if we're going through something that is kind of pushing upon our skills to take care of our mental wellness. So I would encourage you to utilize, you know, some of the resources we provide for free, which employees are eligible to use, like the therapy assistance online, even the at-risk Cognito training, because if you can recognize distress in others, that means you also know how to recognize distress in yourself, which we're not always good at recognizing. And then Bobcat Balance can be just a good resource to utilize. So.
Is this what you were just talking about?
So this is at risk.
Okay.
At risk is really, I mean, this is geared towards helping employees be able to recognize distress in students. But if you can recognize distress in students, you can recognize distress in people.
And
And
it's
then
like a simulation.
it is.
All right, cool.
And then therapy assistance online. I think I put a picture. This is an app. There's a lot of different platforms. This is the one we've chosen at this point in time. And they're video modules within a series, like focusing on helping you manage mood. There's probably 8 different 20 to 30-minute modules in there. And it's literally teaching you the skills and techniques that we teach in individual therapy. It's just packaged in a way where you're kind of given some information about why this would be beneficial, what this technique is, and then kind of you ask you some questions. How could you see yourself utilizing this? But I always figure the more mental health tools we have in our toolkit, the better, because if you just had a hammer and you went through trying to bang things out, you could damage things, right? So if you kind of have that wide range of different tools to pull for mood and emotions and stress management, that can be helpful.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything else, anyone? All right, well, thank you guys for your interest. Please fill out the survey. I think it's the last slide in your packet. Use the QR code if you want credit, and we'd love your feedback, and let us know how we can support you. Yeah.
Can we contact you all if we have any more questions?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, our names are in the slides. You can look us up. Yep, of course. Yeah, please do. Yeah. You can always send a question to worklife@Texas State, and Josh is really good at triaging those. All right, have a great day, you guys.
Thank
Thank
y'all.
you.
If you want to try and do the evaluation now, you should be able to use your cameras on your phones. And it'll pull a link up. Failing that, you should be getting the email regardless. So.
And we'll do an email with that survey to them.
So yeah,
I had to charge my phone.
they should be able to.
I think they did that last year.
Yeah, so it's so small.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Really appreciate it. Bye. Yeah, you had to do that. What did
Sorry.
Oh, I failed. Oh, no. Trying to get it.
Yeah,
It's about.
Yeah, so,
It's all been better, but the last little bit, so I'm kind of rusted. So I don't.
well, I mean,
Yeah.
but the process is.
Good, how are you?
I was
checking it out. It's Dr. Freya.
Oh, yeah.
She's taking she's a 5th grader.
Oh,
okay. And she loves writing. And she's done some so much writing.
Sure.
Very nice.
Really? Thank you. You're welcome. Let us know if we can help in any way.
I don't know if it's
Is everybody?
I'm here.
Like,
My-
that's the problem I get to is like, I'm in the gym, I don't know what to do. I'm also a graduate student in New York, or DC, so I asked one of the other grad students in there who's in your department.
And so it hasn't been
Josh, I agree.
Maybe.
I think he's like extra.
Okay.
And it
So,
also-
if you're in your, if you're interested in.
So
I like change the shoes so that I'm not, here's kind of thinking around what about, you know, we
Yeah.
recommend
Crappy shoes are like
practice shoes,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
they're my shoes.
Yeah.
But even with that.
Yeah, but like everything's just like a little.
And,
Okay, that's the problem we're facing right now. I overdid it now. Once I put their presentation.
Well,
Yeah.
something. How long after the interview?
Also, we do a lot of pre-workout warm-up. So what you
Sometimes a stress fracture won't show up for the first couple of weeks,
Yeah.
but it will show up.
Yeah.
So she should be able to see that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, or if you're like, I think,
Oh.
yeah, shoulder level. And so you're gonna pull the spine right here.
Is that similar?
Exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just read it.
Well, I've done it twice now for my shoulder. That's fine. Like stretch.
So,
I
when you're like sitting, laying in bed with your shoes on, you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
So I overdid
Okay,
it.
okay.
Tricep kick up.
I would go back.
I'm trying to work around that.
Yeah.
Is there a therapist? You have diagnostic procedures. Most PTs do.
Okay.
You should find out. And they can put that guy. It's watching
Yeah,
you.
we're good.
That's how we know. Yes, yeah, yeah, and the only thing really to do is.
Compound exercises are able to like much longer.
Yeah, yeah.